Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to this module of the Western Ivey HBA AEO Bootcamp put on by Admissions Ally. So in this module, we're really going to be diving into Western and Ivey and the HBA program. So this is going to give you all the details about the program and the resources and everything you really need to know. So a couple of very common questions we've gotten here at Admissions Ally, and questions myself as someone who went to Ivey when I was going through the process had were, is Ivey HBA a good program? Before grade 11, grade 10, I had never even heard of the program, right? Is it a good fit for me, right? Would I succeed there? Would I mesh well with the culture and with the environment? And overall, is it worth it, right? This is a major investment that you're taking in your future, and you really want to make the right decision. So, before we get into it, I think obviously it's important to kind of tell you who I am. You're trusting me with this kind of information. So my name is Adrian Mazzarolo. So I'm an Ivey HBA graduate. I graduated in April of 2019 from the HBA program. Just recently I graduated from the MSc program in April 2020, where I was actually the gold medalist, achieving the highest academic average in the program. In terms of my extracurriculars during university, I was the president of a fraternity on campus. I was an orientation leader, also known as a SOF at Western, which basically was tasked with helping first-year students transition to, university life. It's a huge step. It's a major new environment, so I was kind of there to help them with that transition. And I also tutored a lot of my fellow peers, whether it was in stats, other math courses, economics, finance, accounting. It was all there. So, I think my experience, both being a student at Ivey twice now, I come with a lot of experience on, what it takes to succeed at Ivey, what it takes to get into Ivey, and, I have this underlying desire to help people through my experiences with tutoring and with being an orientation leader. In terms of work experience, I worked at RBC for 2 summer internships, one while I was in Ivey, one before I was in Ivey, and I also worked at a technology company in Toronto, and now I'm working full-time at a management consulting company for the golf industry called GGA Partners. When it comes to my kind of coaching philosophies, I think there are 2 really main philosophies I follow. I think it's very important, 1, that you do your research, and 2, to be your authentic self. The only way you're going to know if Ivey is the right fit is if, 1, you are being true to who you are and what you value. Ivey wants you for who you are, not who you think they want you to be. And 2, by doing your research and seeing if there is that kind of blend there that would go well together between you and Ivey. So at Admissions Ally, our founder actually developed a sort of system, a process of evaluating a university and looking at a university. So there's 9 preferences when people are choosing a university. There's resources that the university offers, the location of the university, what kind of career aspects and prospects you have after going to that university, obviously very important. The co-curriculars offered on how you can get involved on campus through Advocacy as well. The key alumni are sometimes pretty important, and when it comes to making that decision for some people. Academics, obviously very important. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to school. It's important that the academics are, at the standard you desire. The culture of the school, very important. You want to be able to fit in and to go and mesh well with that culture so you can really experience it to the fullest. And the campus in general, whether there's, old rundown buildings that are, you kind of want to avoid, or whether it's new and flashy and, amazing amenities. So in starting to look at Western and Ivey, we're going to talk about the student resources. So Western itself has a very bulky system in terms of picking up courses and scheduling appointments and that sort of thing called OWL. And, for your first 2 years at Western, you'll be using that software, so you'll get pretty used to it. But Ivey, once you get into Ivey, has a much sleeker and newer system called Learn. It's a lot more streamlined, a lot easier to message your professors, to submit assignments, all that kind of stuff. In terms of other resources on campus, at Ivey specifically, they actually have their Ivey Technology Center, which is a room on the 2nd floor of the Ivey building that will pretty much handle any and all needs you have while you're at Ivey. For the 2 or more years you're there. So some kind of examples, they'll give you a loaner laptop. So if you're, pretty much all the exams at Ivey are on laptops. So say the day before your laptop breaks or something and you're really stressed out, the Ivy Technology Center will actually lend you a laptop to be able to write your exam. They also download software. So for example, I have a Mac, but I was able to download Windows operating system as well as the Mac operating system on my Mac, so I could use Excel and some other functionality that was only available on Windows computers. So that was great. So the Ivy Technology Center is fantastic. They're really, really nice people, and they're really there to help. Now, when it comes to career management, it is incredible at Ivy. It's a huge resource. They have tons of people who are willing to help you. They have drop-ins for questions about careers or events that are happening. They have mock interviews where you can test your skills and get feedback from people who have seen hundreds and hundreds of interviews and assessed hundreds of interviews. You can submit your resume and your cover letter to get evaluated to make sure it's at the standard required to be hired by the best companies. So it's really taken seriously at Ivy, and it's a fantastic resource. And another major resource, and one that attracts a lot of attention, is actually the library at Ivy. It's not open just to Ivy students, so don't worry about that, but it is a fantastic resource. As you can see in the picture here, the tables are actually whiteboards, so if you're studying and you're more of a visual learner, you can use the whiteboards and write. It's very quiet. There's tons of books, and if you're very interested in finance, there's actually, I think there's 10 Bloomberg terminals within that, within the library. With each of those, costing about $25,000, it's clear that Ivy really invests in the best resources for their students. Now, this is a newer sort of resource and one that was really a big part of when I was at Ivy. It's called Ally at Ivy, or My Ally. So in each section, which is, we'll get into a later module, but basically there are specific students and reps at Ivy who are there to be your ally. So, if you're coming forward, if you're really stressed, if you're, experiencing a lot of anxiety or other sort of mental health discrepancies, these people are there to really just listen, allow you to kind of vent your feelings and give you the support that is, tremendous, right? Making the jump to Ivy is a huge step. It can be very difficult at times, and it's really nice to know that there is that kind of support system around you to help you through these times. Now, the second factor we're going to look at is the location. So Ivy and Western are both located in London. So London, as you can see from this map, is on the southwestern side of Ontario, kind of close to the U.S. border, and also pretty much in between the U.S. border and Toronto, which makes it close for a lot of people. It's one of the best university towns, I would say. There's tons of things to do, and the people are just fantastic. So downtown is a major selling point in London. There's always, as I was mentioning, there's always events going on, whether it's live music or lots of parks and areas to hang out with friends, or get a couple drinks with some friends after class. It's like incredible. There's always something to do. It's also just a beautiful city as well. It's actually called the Forest City because of the unbelievable amount of trees, as you can see from this picture. There is an incredible amount of outdoor and nature activities, hikes, parks that, if that's what you're into, you can also do in London. However, you won't be able to do a lot of that stuff throughout the year, as it gets very, very cold. I always said it was unfortunate that, we're at Western for the months we are, because about 6 of those are probably covered in snow. September, October is good, and then April, if you're lucky, it gets a little bit better weather, but from November to about March, February, there's a lot of snow and it can get very cold, so be prepared for that. Now, the third factor, and one that's obviously very important when you're looking at universities, is the career aspect. So on-campus recruitment does exist at Ivy, so organizations will come to Ivy to recruit students, hold info sessions to give students a little bit more information on their company or the roles they're offering. However, Ivy does not have co-op. So I know some other schools, I believe Laurier has a co-op aspect. Ivy does not have that. However, I think it's about high 90s that will receive a summer internship between HBA 1 and HBA 2. I think it's almost 100% actually. And as we can see on these visuals, 96% of those people after graduating Ivy who were looking for a job got a job. So that's an unbelievable amount. On the left, we can see the compensation salary. So the base salary is obviously something that's very interesting and very key when people are making that decision on what school to go to, and Ivy has done a fantastic job in that regard. So, a median base salary of $65,000, signing bonus of about $5,000, and other guaranteed compensation, whether that's through stock options or other aspects, is about $9,000. So rounding out at about $73,000. So in terms of what kind of roles students at Ivy go into after graduation, it's pretty much the usual business school endeavors. So you see from this chart here, 30% entered finance jobs, so that's investment banking, private equity, working at a commercial bank, working at RBC, such as my experience. 22% go into consulting, so that's working for some of the bigger companies, whether they're the big four accounting companies, their kind of consulting arm, or BCG, Bain, McKinsey. Some of the most exclusive companies will pretty much only hire from select schools in Canada, and Ivy is one of those. Now, one thing that I actually really like to see was just how diverse it is. Sure, finance and consulting take up a large proportion, but that's expected at a business school. Other than that, there's tons of other sort of roles that people go into. If you look at technology taking up 7%, CPG, consumer packaged goods, telecom, real estate, restaurant, PR, there's a wide variety of roles that students from Ivy are entering, and it's only expanding as time goes on. Now, another important aspect of any career is any university career is the co-curriculars. You don't want to go to school to just go to school. You want to do things that you are interested in and enjoy while you're there for at least 4 years. So Ivy has more than 25 clubs, and it's growing. So some of them I've put here in this visual. We have the entrepreneurship, we have the finance club, the Pride Club, and the Ivy Consulting Club. So there are some clubs that are more focused on an industry you're working towards, and others focus more towards your own lifestyle and that sort of thing. So there's tons and tons of clubs to get involved with at Ivy. They have a clubs a week where you can talk to the presidents, see what the clubs are all about, and really get involved in what interests you. And the good part is, they're usually pretty cheap. I think it's about $20 to be a part of the club, and that actually lasts for your entire HBA career. So whether you do HBA 1 and 2, that'll be covered. If you do dual degree, I believe it's also covered in that. So you pay a one-time low fee, and you're in for the rest of your Ivy career, which is fantastic. Now, another aspect of co-curricular is the Ivy Community Consulting Project, also known as CCP. So what this is, 1 year sponsored by Accenture. Some Ivy students who are interested in being a part of this, they'll actually get to work with a real company, and they'll do consulting for that company. So it's fantastic in terms of getting that hands-on experience. Not a lot of other schools will have this, where you are truly working on a real consulting project for real companies. So it's a great opportunity, and one I would highly suggest. A lot of people who end up going into consulting kind of do this project to get their feet a little bit wet, and they all love it from what I've heard. So another aspect of that co-curriculars is many of these clubs actually offer exclusive office tours at some of the most prestigious firms. So for example, a lot of people going into marketing or CPG, they were invited to exclusive office tours, just Ivy students, at the P&G headquarters, Canadian headquarters that is. Bain also did that. I was actually part of that, and it was unbelievably cool experience. I think it was me and 10 or 11 other people who got invited to go to Bain's office in Toronto and talk to a couple people at the firm and really get an idea of what the firm is all about and, the experience of working there. So these experiences are very, very rare and, amazing opportunities, to be honest. So the fifth factor is the campus itself and the facility on those campuses, right? You're going to be spending a lot of time on campus, whether it's in class, whether it's, visiting friends, or whether it's, going to the library. So it's important that, you are aware of the situation of what this university's campus and facilities look like. So Western, unbelievably a beautiful school. One of the first things you'll see when you enter the campus, when you're driving up, is this building here, UC University College, and it just takes your breath away. It's amazing. It's so beautiful. There's so many trees and nature on campus, and the buildings are so regal and beautiful. So really nothing bad I can say about that. The fitness center pictured here is newly renovated, actually twice. I think they renovated it first in 2013 to make it much bigger and moved it from the University Community Center before. And just recently, I think they added a bunch of new basketball courts inside the gym as well, and that was pretty much last summer I think they did that. So it's very new. It's a massive gym, like hundreds of workout machines, and I think it's one of the biggest actually in the country. So, pretty amazing facilities on campus in that regard. So here's the big building. When you get into Ivy, you'll be spending all your classes will be in this building, newly opened in 2013. Beautiful inside and outside. You can just look at it, right? It's a great building. State-of-the-art facilities within. Unbelievable. Now the student residences, they vary in size. There's three kinds. There's your usual traditional style, which is you and another roommate. There's the hybrid, which is the one pictured here, where yes, you do have a roommate. However, it's a little sectioned off, so you have your own kind of space, and they have their own kind of space, which is great. Or they have the other style, the last style, which is there's two roommates on one side, a main kitchenette, common room in the middle, and then two more roommates. So technically, you would have three roommates, but you each get your own room with your own door, your own space, which is what I had in Essex Hall at Western, and it was fantastic because you kind of get that blend of, you can have that common area time and conversations, but when if you want to just have your own time and study, you can do that by just shutting your door. It's great. Now, another really important factor when it comes to choosing a school is the culture, right? You want to know that you're with like-minded individuals and you're really going to feel at home because it's going to be your second home for at least 4 years. So HBA student culture, pretty much, it's known as work hard, play hard, and I mean that in the nicest way. I think everyone, once you're in Ivy, everyone has worked so hard to get there. No one got there without trying as hard as they could. And once you're there, you are worked very hard. It's going to be a lot of work. And so when the time comes, you can celebrate that. You go out with your friends and, you have a couple drinks or get some food or go to a restaurant. I know after my section's final exam in first semester, we all went out and got sushi, right? So we all just celebrated this unbelievable gauntlet we kind of just got through, and that's something you'll get to be a part of. It's amazing. Now, don't take that as, you can skive off or slack off and it's not serious, because in the classroom, it is very, very competitive. You're graded on your contributions to the class, and, it's a very important part. That's pretty much the bulk of the case study method, which is taught at Ivy. However, it is a very encouraging environment. Everyone knows if you're there, you're qualified, and they want you to do well. So it is encouraging, but again, at the end of the day, you want to have the best contribution, which takes the time and effort to, study what you have to study. So factor 7 is obviously academics. You come to university to learn, so it's a very important factor when it comes to choosing a said university. So at Ivy, how it works is called the 2+2 method. Now, I believe this brings an unbelievable amount of diversity of thought to classes. So how this works is, in your first 2 years, you'll be enrolled at Western in any program of your choice. So you could be in social science doing economics, you can be in music. I have a couple friends who are in music and went to Ivy. You can be in arts, you can be in engineering, science, anything for those first 2 years. And then when in your third year is when you would start at Ivy HBA in that building I showed you. So that would be for the next 2 years, and if you do a dual degree, it would be a couple more, which I'll get into. But yeah, so this method I think is amazing because, some other schools like Queen's, you're starting business from day one, and you know what, that's fantastic. There are certain opportunities that come from learning business from day one, and that's great. But at Ivy, you're sitting in a classroom with people from totally different academic backgrounds. So you could be having a case on, pharmaceuticals, and you have a student who was in science for the first 2 years, so they know more of the chemistry background and, the pharmaceutical, what it takes. Or you could be doing a case on, some live music event. A student in music is going to know that field far better than a student might in another program. So it really brings unique perspectives, and it's something that I really enjoyed and really noticed while I was at Ivy. So how the courses work at Ivy, again, it's not business from day one in terms of first and second year, but when you start third year, which would be your HBA 1, all the HBA 1s in the same year take the same classes at the same time. You have the same exams at the exact same time. So, you'll be taking strategy, marketing, communications, finance, operations, leading people in organizations, which is kind of like organizational behavior. You'll be doing decision making with analytics, which was my favorite course of HBA 1, accounting, leveraging information technology, which is like a technology company, kind of learning about that sort of aspect of the business world, and learning through action, which is case competitions throughout the year. So those are kind of your core business courses. HBA 1, you're getting your business education right off the bat. So all the classes at Ivy are rooted in the world-class case study method. So how that works is, at Harvard was the first school to do it, and Ivy was the first Canadian school to do it. So how that works is, instead of more of a lecture base where you're kind of sitting back, listening to a professor talk about the theories from the textbook and all that sort of stuff, instead, you'll do a case of a real event, a real company, and you'll be tasked with solving that case. So that could be through, as I mentioned, a pharmaceutical company. Maybe they're trying to go to market, and you need to figure out the best strategy of how they can do that. So the case study method, from this visual, you can see the kind of learning process is, you read the case and do it yourself and think about your own ideas. Then you go with your group, who could be those diverse individuals from all those backgrounds, and you talk about the case and see different perspectives, and then you bring that perspective to class, and then you have a discussion on that. So you can really see how thorough and how much more in depth that kind of conversation and method of learning is than just kind of sitting back and listening to a professor talk about some theory that was created 100 years ago. So going on exchange is another huge aspect of Ivy. I know some schools like Queen's, I think it's like 70% of kids go on exchange, so it's not that high at Ivy, but still the students who do choose to go on exchange at Ivy have nothing bad to say about it. It is an unbelievable experience. You can go to Australia, you can go to some schools in Asia, you can go to Manchester in England, you can go to few in Australia, as I mentioned. Like, there's a number of different variety of options that you can take, and it is a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? You're in a totally different country, learning how a different country in a different area of the world really operates. So it's a fantastic opportunity. And so exchange at Ivy is done in your final semester of HBA 2. So that would likely be your last semester at Ivy. So some students, myself included, I didn't want to go on exchange because I wanted to have my last semester at Ivy instead of somewhere else. But other people, they wanted to go out and see the world, and they did it, and they really enjoyed it. So as I was mentioning earlier, the dual degree options at Ivy are pretty fantastic. I think, they're one of the few schools that offer such a thorough and robust option of dual degrees. So with the 2+2 method, you can see here, so from secondary school, you've applied, you've gotten into Western, you've gotten your AEO status, you start university, and you do your first 2 years in whatever you want, right? Whatever your program you got into at Western, and then year 3 would be your HBA and 1, and year 4 would be your HBA 2, and now there's an optional, 5+ for your dual degrees. So how that would work is, say you did engineering for your first 2 years, you would start at Ivy in HBA 1 doing all Ivy courses, and then in HBA 2, you'd be doing a blend of engineering and Ivy courses, and the same thing in your 5th year as well, doing engineering with Ivy. So fantastic opportunity. You spend 1 extra year than you would, and you get 2 degrees. Another very popular one is the law degree, dual degree. So kids will do Ivy, and it's 2 additional years, so technically 6 years in total. So you do 2 years regular at Western, and then 4 years blended between Ivy and Western law. So you graduate in 6 years with both a law degree and a business degree. So unbelievable opportunity, very, very sought after dual degree at Western. Now, another factor that's important for a lot of people is the alumni who have graduated from that school. So one very important alumni, and pretty recent alumni, is Michael Katchen. So he's the co-founder and CEO of the personal finance company Wealthsimple, that blends technology with investing, and it's very popular. So he did his HBA at Ivy, and you can see here he's come back and done a few talks at Ivy as well, which are always jam-packed because he's such an influential person. recently, 3 Ivy graduates were actually named as some of the top 100 most influential women in Canada. So here we have Jodie Kovitz, Justine Jansen, and Hélène Timpano. So they were, obviously very influential women, and they learned a lot at Ivy and brought that into the world. Now, although these 2 men graduated from Ivy, they did so from the MBA program, not the HBA program, and it's very important to discern those. Obviously, the MBA program is fantastic, and it's not saying the HBA program isn't, but be careful when people throw out some notable alumni and really take the time to research if they did the program you're actually applying to. And the final factor is just overall advocacy. So in terms of tuition, it is expensive at Ivy. There's no way around it. But there's a positive of it because your first 2 years you're paying regular Western tuition, so that could be $6,000 as we see here. Engineering is a little bit more expensive, and some other programs might be a little bit more expensive than others. But once you get to Ivy, it is expensive. So for domestic students, it's roughly $25,000 a year, and when you average that out actually over the 4 years, it's roughly equivalent to the other very high-ranking business schools like Queen's Commerce and Rotman. So in the grand scheme of things, you're pretty much paying what you would be paying at the other schools. You're just kind of splitting it differently, doing a little bit less expensive in the first few years and more expensive in the last 2 or 3. And now our final question here is it worth it? I think obviously that's a very, very hard and loaded question to answer. From my perspective, I'm a very proud alumnus of Ivy. I had a fantastic experience there. I met some of my closest friends, and I really developed as a person and as a future leader. So I enjoyed my time there, but again, it comes back to that doing your research and being true to your authentic self. Ivy was worth it for me, but maybe for some other people, the culture is a little bit not what they're looking for, or they prefer to learn that lecture style. And so that's up to you to really do that research to really see if you'll enjoy it. Now, as we come to the end of this module, it's very important for you to know that you can get real support from people. This coming year is going to be very challenging and very new and different experiences with COVID and everything going on. And so I want you to know that, there are an unbelievable amount of admissions coaches here at Admissions Ally who have thorough experience at Ivy, who are very, very willing to help you. So please do not hesitate to reach out. Thanks.